Hi, Happy Valley. Today's video is going to be on doing letters in perspective, and I thought I would bring the dogs in here and we would do their names, or I'm going to do their names. So this is Titan. He'll be 10 months old on Saturday, and I'm going to use his name to do 1 point perspective. And then I'll bring Thunder in here to do 2 point. All right, let's get started. When working with letters in perspective, with 1 point perspective, you don't have to have a horizon line. You just have to have a vanishing point, because you're not drawing something realistic like a landscape or a cityscape, things like that. So as you know, with 1 point perspective, you draw the front of the object first. So we're going to first draw out the letters, and then we'll add the vanishing point. So let's draw out our letters. Make sure that they are bubble letters or that they are block letters. And I like to work with block letters. You can use your ruler if you want. I'm just going to freehand this on here, and I'm going to use Titan's name. So write out his name, or whatever name that you want to do. Give yourself lots of space. I like to work with uppercase. That's just what I'm accustomed to. So we have his name on here, and then I'm going to put that block on in the center. So with perspective letters, when working with 1 point, you can show the top part of the box as if, or the letters, as if we are a bird, and we would put our vanishing point up here. Or we can put it below the letters and we would see the bottoms of them like we were doing a worm's eye. I prefer being able to see the tops of the letters, so I'm going to put my vanishing point. Now you can put this vanishing point wherever you'd like. If you would like the letters to lean more towards the left, put your vanishing point on the left-hand side. If you'd like them to lean more towards the right, put on the right. Same thing goes for the bottoms and the sides. So what you're going to do is use your ruler, and where these corners of our letters meet, all these little points along the way, you're going to line them up with the vanishing point. If you can draw them without initially going through your letter, then you can do it. Now you can go all the way to the vanishing point, and that just makes it look like your name or your letters have been blown out from that vanishing point and they're coming towards you. I'm not a big fan of that. I draw just towards it, but I try to make sure everything stays at the same distance. So drawing my top part of my T, bottom part, if I were to try drawing from this position towards that vanishing point, I would initially go through my letter so I don't draw it. Same goes for here. If I were to line this up with my ruler, this corner, it's going to go through my letter first, so I won't draw it. Down here at the bottom, same thing's going to happen. Now I can see this, and some of you might be able to just visually look at it. Others of you might have to use your ruler, and there's nothing wrong with that. Bottom right-hand side, it can line up towards that vanishing point, so I'm going to draw towards it. Down here, and we're working just on the letter T, so don't you worry about, or I'm working just on the letter T, don't worry about your next letter that's in the way. So you might think, well, I can't draw this because it's going to go through my eye. You just draw the part before the eye gets there. Remember that eye is kind of overlapping. So once I've gotten all of these points lined up with that vanishing point, like sides want to look the same. Okay, so here is the front of my box. So if I want to finish off the back part of my box, I want to keep a parallel line running just like it does in the front. So I'm going to use my ruler and connect. I want to keep this distance, and actually I might thin this out a bit, so I'm going to move that up. And I'll go back and erase all this stuff in a minute. I didn't want my T to be that far back. So there's my line right there. I went ahead and cleaned that up a little bit, got rid of the extra stuff I don't need. And then I want to mimic this front line back here. So don't worry about that I being in the way. I'm just going to draw this down. And I want to keep this same thickness when I work down here at the bottom. So this line we already know is way too long. I'm going to use my ruler. I want to match up the same as the front, like sides want to look the same. And then I'm going to draw my line up back towards that T and erase anything extra. All right, so let's move on to the letter, or for the I. So these points, these corners of our letter, lining it up with the vanishing point, drawing towards it. Remember, you want to keep them all about the same distance. You don't want to have some letters, unless that's what you're going for. But I like to have them all kind of maintain the same thickness, if you must. All right, let's finish these up. Like sides and like. Now I didn't draw this bottom left-hand side because it is going to go through my letter. And then I want to mimic that front line. Now if you want to be perfect with this and make everything look perfect, use a ruler. I obviously hand drew this, so it's not going to be, it's partially hand drawn, partially done with the rulers, so it doesn't look super perfect and blocky, but if that's how you are, use a ruler to map out your letters. All right, top left-hand side. Here we go again. And this letter T, this one is closer to that vanishing point. So we really won't see much. We are right up on that vanishing point, so we cannot see the bottom, either the left or the right. It's one of those weird ones. When you get right up on that vanishing point, that's when things kind of change just a bit. I want to keep everything about the same. So I'm lining up with my previous lines and then erasing all that extra stuff. All right, let's start with the A. Top part of that A. Go towards that vanishing point. Towards the vanishing point. Bottom of this A, I can go towards that vanishing point without going through my letter A. Down here, bottom right, I would go through my letter A. I do not draw it. Bottom second left, go towards it. Very bottom far right, can't go do it. All right, like sides want to look the same. This angle, you want to keep that same angle back there. So I like to line up my ruler with the angle and then slide the ruler over. Down in here, like sides want to look the same. Let's talk about the inside part of our letter. So, same thing applies for this. These corners, you want to line them up. I know that my top left is going to initially go through my letter. I won't draw it. Top right, same thing's going to happen. Bottom left, same thing's going to happen. Bottom right, I can draw towards it. Just a teensy bit. We want it to be the same. We want it to be the same distance inside. So I'm going to line this up. Right up in here. Draw straight up. And then we have this bottom portion. We want it, excuse me, it's my dog. He's found a toy. We want to have this bottom part right down here. It's going in the same direction. Titan, are you excited for your name? Are you excited? All right, and the last letter that we're going to do is that N. So all these corners, you're just going to line them up towards that vanishing point. You got a squeaker. Towards the vanishing point. Towards the vanishing point, working at the top part of this. bottom can go towards it. Now that A is right there, but you can still initially draw off of that N. So you're going to go back towards that next letter and just stop. Bottom right hand on the N, I can't draw that. Very bottom on the left hand side. This is going to be really a tight squeeze, so we can get that in there just a bit. Then this very far bottom right, it will not work. So now we want to have like sides. So we're going to start off at the top. I like to keep all the top the same. So line it up with all my previous and where that N is. Continue that on. I might have to extend parts of this like sides back in here. Of course, that A gets in the way. Over here, like sides. Now this is a peculiar one. So what you want to do is finish off this back part. To be frank with you, you might not even need it. I think that looks a little bit funny. So actually for this one, we'll just not have that in there. Because if we were going to have something in there, it would be really, really, really tiny. There we go. So lining it up with that back part, drawing it down. It still looks a little bit funny to me. So that part we could actually, I would honestly get rid of it. It's just, it doesn't need to be there. All right. So that's how you do 1-point perspective letters. And you can have fun with this. You can shade these parts here. You can add textures to them. So using lines or patterns, anything like that, you can add to the letters. You can also color the fronts of these letters. So there's all kinds of fun that you can have when working with perspective. So let's go ahead and we'll start 2-point perspective. All right, so now it's time to do our 2-point perspective, and this is Thunder. She's very nervous right now, so she's panting, but she's going to be our model for the 2-point perspective. She's 3.5 years old, and she is the biggest baby. She's scared of this right now. But anyway, let's get started with our 2-point perspective. Letters in 2-point perspective are a little bit more complicated than when you're working with 1-point perspective. So with this one, we're going to start off with our vanishing point or points first. We don't need a horizon line, but we do need 2 vanishing points. So I like to place that ruler out there, and you're going to put 1 point on the left-hand side, 1 point on the right-hand side. You just want them at the same level. So you don't have to have that horizon line in there. That's just something extra that you're going to have to erase. So I've kept them both on the page. I'm going to zoom this over so you won't be able to see that left-hand vanishing point. I'm going to work out of the right-hand side. So I'm going to create receding lines. So what I want to first do when you work with perspective is create that angle first. So if you notice, it's getting closer to that left-hand vanishing point. I'm just going to lightly draw an angle. And then from out of this angle, left-hand or the right-hand side, we're only going to work on the right-hand side, it's going to go towards the right-hand vanishing point. We're making receding lines. And one for the bottom to go towards the right. Basically made a giant triangle. So this is the space in which you are going to write your letters. Now the tops of these letters use this top receding line. Bottom part of these letters use that bottom one. If you want to be extra, and I like it, then you're going to add a 3rd receding line right here in the middle, and that just kind of helps you keep your letters on target. All right, I like to work backwards, so I'm going to start off with the last letter when I'm working with 2-point perspective. So I'm going to take this R in here. I use that middle line to let me know when I need to do the other half of my letters. Okay, then the E, and that's why I like this middle line right here. Here's the bottom part of my E. I want this line to intersect the D. I come in here and fix things up a bit. Go back over here and add my inner part. Write my N. I had to think about my letters, which one I was doing next. You kind of see that hesitation. The reason why I like to work backwards is because if I run out of space over here, I can just extend or move my angle and extend those receding lines. But it also helps me keep an eye on things so I don't shove everything in there. I made this N quite large. A little bit too big. I'll use my ruler to help me kind of straighten things out a bit. So now I've got to fit 3 letters in this tiny little space. So I was doing good, and then I made that N way too big. I'm going to go back and fix this. I feel much better about that. I bought myself a little bit more space, so I'm still going to have to probably move that. So I'm going to make my U in here. Got 3 more letters to put in here. Squeeze them all in here. 2-point perspective is a little bit more complicated. And it gets even more complicated the more points, vanishing points you add. So I can definitely get my H in here. But I'm going to have to make some room for that T for sure. So because I have that middle line there, to make my H, I have to use receding lines. So like E's. And I was able to kind of hand draw that E. It should actually be tilted a little bit more. But anything that's going away from us, going towards that vanishing point, you're going to need to use the vanishing point. All right, and I'm going to add just a little bit more of an extension to add my T in here. So that T, that top part of that T, is going to use that vanishing point. My ruler is connected to the right-hand vanishing point. I'm going to actually thicken that top part of that T. All right. And I still have my vanishing point over here. So what's going to happen, because my letters got so close to that vanishing point that they're going to actually be pulled down, I might move this vanishing point out just a bit. So I'm going to line this back up. And I'm going to extend my vanishing point almost to the edge of the paper. as close to the edge of the paper. All right, so now we can start backwards, or actually forwards. We're going to work from the T down to the R. You've already got one side of this drawn. Remember, perspective or 2-point perspective, you're drawing the angle first. So we've already kind of got these angles. We're now going to be using the left-hand vanishing point. I can't honestly think of anything that we would use the right-hand side for because we've already drawn the right-hand side. So it's a little bit different than working with regular 2-point perspective when you're creating a scene, a city scene. So you're doing the same thing that we did with the 1-point perspective. You are lining them up though using only the left-hand vanishing point. Okay, so drawing towards that left-hand vanishing point, drawing towards it, connecting these parts with that vanishing point. Bottom down here, the bottom part of my T goes towards that vanishing point. It's very steep. Bottom part of this T, I can go towards that vanishing point. And then let's connect things down. We want like sides to look the same. So here, and I like to keep everything at a equal distance. Here we go. We do use the right-hand side. Okay, so when we are trying to work on the bottom part of our T, or anything that we can see the bottom part of, we will use that right-hand vanishing point to finish off the bottom. So just know that my ruler is positioned on that right-hand vanishing point to finish off the under parts of this because I want like sides to look the same. I'm going to use that right-hand vanishing point. So we do use it. And now this looks a little bit tricky, but we're going to bring this down to match up with that. Get rid of anything extra. And I'm going to, as I work away from my letters, I'm going to get rid of that those receding lines that I initially drew as I work my way. So let's go to this H. There's our left-hand vanishing point. So line that up with that left-hand vanishing point working at the bottom. I can draw towards it. Top left-hand side, I can draw towards it. Connecting like sides down. Inside this space down here, I can draw towards it. Up top here, I can draw towards it. Like sides, you want them to look the same. Watch out for that middle part. If you have an H, you're working on H. Get rid of all that extra receding line that we don't need anymore. All right, so here's the tricky one is we're working with U. So we have something that has a rounded edge. So let's do the top parts of these first. Top part of the U goes towards the vanishing point, left-hand vanishing point. And I would suggest, if you do decide to use this, working with block letters versus curve letters or something more bubbly, because you're going to have a lot more difficulty with it. If you already understand how it works, then you don't need me. But I'm going to pretend like this goes behind that H. So we don't see that like side. But what you want to do in this space is you want it to curve. So on a curve, you can pretend like there's tons of little dots all along it. Or what I do, is find that bottom, that furthest place where you can match it up with that vanishing point and draw real lightly. So I've got it at the bottom. And then we're pretending that this came off and it's coming down here. So we just want to kind of curve and match that up. So you kind of have to hand draw it. Same thing goes for this internal part down in here. So what I want to do down inside this letter U is I want to mimic that. So, and it's going to hide behind this other one. So I'm just going to curve down in here. Get rid of any of that extra stuff that we don't need. And slide this down. So our next letter is going to be the N. I'm currently using that left-hand vanishing point, lining up those corners, drawing towards that left-hand vanishing point. Now I think working with letters in perspective, I really find the 2-point perspective looks much cooler than 1-point perspective, but it is takes a lot more paying attention and double checking and making sure you're doing the right thing. Even I'm questioning some of my moves as I make this video. All right, so this side of my N is hidden by that U, so I don't have to draw it. Here we are, here's that angle. So we want to keep that same angle, slide down there at the bottom, draw up. Down here, like sides, want to look the same. Just got a sneak peek of one right there. Get rid of any of that extra stuff that we don't need. Moving on to our letter D. Get rid of that middle line. Bottom left-hand side. Using the left-hand vanishing point, drawing towards it. Top left, using that left-hand vanishing point, drawing towards it. And we can say that that back part of that D is hidden by the N. And then we've got this curved edge, but it's away from us, so we really don't have to worry about that, but we can see that inner part of this. So this is a really good example for when you are working with curved letters. So you can draw these tiny, tiny little lines on here if it's going to help you out. I can visualize it and see without having to draw the lines, but we want to mimic that. And we're going to be able to see inside that letter D. So I just give it a good distance and I just follow that same shape and throw my pencil. Get rid of any extra stuff. Let's work on this letter E. Using that left-hand vanishing point, drawing towards that left-hand vanishing point. Drawing towards the left-hand vanishing point. This bottom part of the E, you'll be able to see just a smidge. Top part of the E, no. So just down there. So we can see the top part of this on the side. So we'll bring that down till it reaches that letter D. We can't really see anything after that. Get rid of some of this extra receding line I made. And then right here, I can make a little tick mark right there to kind of finish that E off. And we're down to our last letter, letter R. And I'm going to get rid of those horizon lines we don't need. So using that left-hand vanishing point, lining up the R with the left-hand side. Drawing towards it. drawing towards it, connecting like sides down. Inside this R, see just a smidge. And really it's so far back there we can just kind of darken the inner part of the letters. So here we have a whole name in 2-point perspective, and you can have fun with this. Again, you can add value, kind of shade in these little areas and really set it apart from the front part of the letters. You can add textures to the sides. You can have some total fun with it. You can make it look like buildings on the sides, or you can make the whole letters look like buildings. You could do checkerboard. You know, you're going to use that. If you're doing checkerboard on here, you're doing that left-hand vanishing point. You're just pivoting out of that left-hand vanishing point, creating lines down, coloring in the spots. So anyway, this is how to do 2-point perspective letters. Have a good day.